Welcome to the Affirm Life Daily podcast. I'm your host, Cynthia Mitchell. And as always, please visit the website, affirmlifedaily.com. Please follow on social media at Affirm Life Daily. Your support is essential in our truth and freedom movement. But tonight, I have a very special guest that is very dear to my heart. She's more than just a guest. She's a wonderful friend and just a someone I really look up to. So I want to welcome Leslie Powers. Welcome, Leslie. This is our first time on the podcast, so I'm so excited about
Yes.
this.
Thank you, Cynthia, for inviting me. And I feel the same about you. And I admire and respect you so much and all the work you're doing and your heart, how big it is. Yes.
Thank you for that.
So, yeah, sisters, we're in this together. So,
Absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely. We got to be in this together wholeheartedly. And I
Mhm.
just, I love your presence. I love your knowledge base and your authenticity. But like you said, so much of your heart, because I can tell you just sincerely care. You care about the people you interact
Mhm.
with. You care about humanity. You just care. So please tell the audience a little bit about yourself and where they can find you and how they can support your work.
Sure, thank you. Yes, so by profession, I'm a clinical social worker. I've been in the field for over 35 years. And I've got a whole range of experience doing mental health work and social work in communities and agencies and so forth. So there's a lot there. I could go into more detail, but I won't. And then I'm also, when I was, I don't know, in 11th grade, when the guidance counselor asked me what I wanted to be, I said I wanted to be a philosopher. And, and he said, well, I wanted to study philosophy in college. And he discouraged me from that. And so I said, well, I'll do psychology. So I think that was a good move. But now is my era of being a philosopher as well.
Yeah.
And I've done that through really deep diving into the study of natural law, deeply inspired by Mark Passio, What on Earth is Happening. And really, my goal and vision right now is how do I integrate these two things that I hold dear to my heart and that I feel are deeply important is the study of our psychology and our mental health and social well-being along with in the context of natural law
Yeah.
and cosmic reality
Yeah.
because our world has gotten so far askew from reality.
Yes. It's
So,
yeah, it's shocking.
yeah,
It's hard to say that things are shocking anymore, but it is like when you just look at where we are, like how in the world did we let this get this out of control?
exactly. And
Um,
just we were talking right before you went live about that we're in a pressure cooker and the pressure is increasing and the screws are
yes,
tightening.
it is.
And we all need to have skills to manage the pressure
Yep.
because if we care about truth and freedom a- and we are wanting to do something about it, we need to start with ourselves and have the skill sets to be able to manage the stress. Otherwise, we end up participating in the divisiveness and the
Yeah.
dysfunction, and we're not
Yes.
helping.
Yep. I agree with you 100%. And tell people where they can find you, Leslie,
Hmm.
and learn more about your work.
Yes, for now, my website is alivethrive.life, and it has all the podcasts and interviews and things that I've been a part of. I will have a future website that's going to be more geared that'll in this integration, but it's not up and running yet. And the One Great Work Network is a good place to catch all that too.
Awesome,
Yeah.
awesome. Yes, well, I am definitely ready to get into this. And please, if you're watching now, please give a like and support this work because it is very important to all of our collective future.
Yes.
So, the first question I have for you, Leslie, what is the cosmic mother?
Yes. So the presentation I did for Funnel included the concept of the cosmic mother as a archetype of a spirit, a spiritual archetype of the integration of the masculine and feminine, and the integration of the care and self-defense principle. So
Mm,
think that the cosmic mother is the mother of all things, the mother of creation. And when you go back in historical study, archaeological study, mythological study, you see there was a great emphasis on the mother and on the feminine that has been diminished and deprecated, condemned, belittled, misunderstood, diminished,
Yeah.
inverted throughout time and history.
Yeah.
And it became really apparent to me reading the book, The Great Cosmic Mother, Rediscovering the Religion of Earth by Monica Zhu and Barbara Moore. And, I don't necessarily agree with everything she says or all of her conclusions, but she did a very deep dive study of the cosmic mother,
Mm.
from the standpoint of history, archaeology, biology, mythology, sociology, and a little bit of psychology. And it made it very clear how this sort of concept of the mother has been really intentionally and repeatedly removed from our modern life and replaced by, a satanic patriarchy.
Mhm.
She's not calling it satanic. I'm recognizing that it's not about matriarchy, patriarchy, or matrilineal and patrilineal. It's not that. It's about the Satanism that has hijacked the whole balance of the sacred masculine and feminine and the sacred union.
Yes.
Um, that
It's
is what
complete inversion. It's complete inversion.
Yes. Yes, which is the foundation of all creation. And it is by really reviving the feminine wisdom, which is why I have coined the term reviving Sophia in one of my projects, is like we need to go back to the original wisdom of understanding that sacred relationship
Yeah.
and then apply it to ourselves in our own psychology, in our own healing, as well as to the world, you know
Yeah.
so this is like a revival, really of bringing the feminine back on the scene and recognizing that the mother really, in essence, is a blending of masculine and feminine. If you think about, masculine as the giver, the linear, the doer, and the feminine as the receiver, and you think of the relationship between a mother and her children, the children are in the feminine position while the mother has to be the provider and supporter while holding on to the feminine aspects of care and nurturing and process. Like nurturing you could see as an active, almost masculine thing, but what the feminine brings is this very present moment, loving, caring spirit.
Yeah.
And it's in this spirit, we could think of it the womb space, the place where we get to be safe and process as a feminine motherly space, which is part of the solution, I think, to solving a lot of the problems in the world.
Yeah, yeah, no, I agree because I feel like we've just completely lost that balance. And even, I'm glad you brought up the whole matriarchy patriarchy thing, because and yes, that exists, and we are, definitely in a patriarchy, but like you said, there's a problem underneath that. That's a symptom of the
Hmm.
underlying problem that you just described. And unless we deal with that, the other problems will never be able to be
Right.
reconciled. There'll be no
Yes.
resolution to them unless we deal with that underlying issue.
Yes.
And it's not just the men doing this to us, the men doing this to us. We are doing it also to ourselves. I
Yes.
often catch my own self, like, why am I thinking like that about myself? Or why am I doing that? Or whatever, because it's like the conditioning is also so deep in me too, you know?
Yeah. Yes. And the gender we want to remember is in everything,
Right.
right?
Yes.
Gender exists both masculine and feminine in all things and all
Yes.
beings. So
Yes.
as men and women, we are both. We have both. We are both. And so this cosmic mother is this sort of ideal, you could say, spiritual, uh, conceptual balancing of these forces in a way that creates integration and not polarization. So looking at the Hermetic principles, we have the principle of polarity, and that's what we're seeing in the world right now is
Extreme polarity.
so much polarization, so
Yes.
much division, and I'm quite sure that in many cases it's intentionally created, and it's also fueled, and it's perpetuated,
Mhm.
and we all get caught in it to some degree,
Yeah.
and the only way to be able to get ourselves out of that is to have an awareness of what's going on. And it involves a stepping back from the process in our own mind and being able to be a caring, compassionate witness to what's happening, right? To
Hmm.
bring back the to bring back the objective truth requires us to understand our subjectivity,
Mm, yes.
right? It's our
Yes.
subjective that's prone to all of this extremeness and the divisiveness.
Yeah.
And yet it blurs us from being able to see the objectivity of truth and what's going on in the world. And so we need to develop a process for managing our subjectivity that is not just again putting us in polarization and it's wrong, telling us it's wrong.
Right.
We need to be able to enter into that womb space, that processing place of processing, in a and be able to do the proper trivium of gathering data and processing in a rational way, but also addressing the emotional aspects of ourselves and what created that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it, that emotional aspect, and not confusing the emotion with yourself. I'm trying
Yeah.
to get in the habit personally of saying I'm experiencing sadness rather than I am sad, or I'm experiencing anger rather than I am mad, you know?
Yeah.
So it's a very hard habit to break because we've been very conditioned to become the emotion. We
Exactly.
are the emotion rather than just experiencing and letting that flow through us and processing it. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That
And
we go ahead.
I on that point, I wanted to share that I brought in and I'm bringing into my work the work of Richard Schwartz, who's founded the internal family systems model, and it's becoming much more popular therapy model, and it's one of the few that brings in a level of depth psychology. And again, I don't think he's totally on enlightened to natural law, but what he's bringing to the table is this idea of self energy, which self energy has qualities to it that are akin to perhaps how we might see the cosmic mother having. And this involves care, right? Compassion, curiosity, the awareness of our connection to our connectedness to all that is, our connection to life, to each other, being connected to ourself, connected to our body,
Mm,
right? The calmness, the state where we are able to have a calm enough nervous system so that our frontal lobes and thinking brain is online and able to rationally assess and think. We need to understand the triune brain, where which is very deeply connected to our physiology. And I like to think of our body as really an extension of our mind, especially our nervous systems. And that in our society, we've really become very disconnected from our body, even though we've becoming over identified with the material. But we're over identifying with that which is outside of us and that is separate from the spiritual. And so this self energy state is a state that we can cultivate in order to see our self more clearly in our own inner divisiveness, our inner division.
yeah, I agree, and I think too it's just this obsession also with labels. You know, people want to have 50 million labels, but then they really actually know nothing about themselves, their internal workings. No connection to their core spirit, but
Mm.
you want all these artificial labels, and they think that's who they are. But that's just a label, and that
Yeah,
could change. It's just by consensus we all agree that means this. It doesn't have any inherent meaning in and of itself. You can only get that from going inside.
yeah. We can identify with our persona, with different personas,
Mm,
and those personas often become attached to strong emotion. And the stronger the emotional attachment to a persona or to that ego, aspect of ourself, then the more skewed we become from truth, the more deviated, and the more we are in a polarized state. And people, are become like that. Attachment is a very emotional thing, and people cling to it
Yeah.
in many ways, because when we feel strongly about something, and we feel strongly about principles. I feel strongly about principles, but if I get really polarized in a principle, I could very quickly become pretty disrespectful to someone I perceive as having a disconnect
Yeah.
from that. Is that going to help our humanity get more unified, or is that just going to keep us separate?
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
were all kind of polarized into little groups and segments,
Yeah.
and I think that we have to find a way to bridge the gap with people that we may be triggered by. It's much more easy to stay in our little niches of comfort zone with
Oh
people
yeah.
that think like
Yeah.
we think, or
Echo
we're
chambers.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it's we need to have our people that we can be like, oh my gosh, that understand what we're talking about and
Yes.
feel similarly. But we can't stop there.
Yeah.
And I think that we all need to take those extra steps to go out and find a way to connect into the larger world, and share the knowledge of natural law, for example, and understanding the fundamental human rights and what they mean, and the understanding of the dangers of authority, man-made authority, and government being really a type of slavery, right? All of these are very triggering things,
Right.
and we get a lot of pushback from
We do.
anyone that we're really direct with about that. And I do think, we can, if we just keep pushing harder, 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 we're creating more uh, pushback, and we're not coming to the unity and the integration that we need to gather the numbers to unify around something that we all can agree on, which is hopefully a care for freedom, a care for truth, a care for humanity,
Yeah.
wellness, and our children, our future generations. So we have to get off some of our soapboxes.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. We definitely need to continue to have those dialogues, even if you're not, you might not even be in 50% alignment with someone, but that doesn't mean you can't find some areas where there's overlap, where then you can start at least a conversation. You can start
Yes.
a dialogue. You can plant some seeds. I'm a big seed planter. You don't
Yeah.
have to believe anything that I'm saying, but I'm gonna plant these seeds and then I'm gonna keep it moving. You know
Yes.
what I'm saying? And sometimes you talk to that person, maybe 6 months later, or a year later, 2 years later, and one of those seeds sprouted
Yes.
and they have a whole new thought process about something that you
Yeah.
brought up to them maybe a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. So I'm a big believer in that. And I don't have to condemn the person or be like, I hate you, or just, I'm gonna plant these seeds and keep it moving. As long as they're not infringing on my rights directly, I'm gonna, try to keep that dialogue open and
Yeah.
give them a space to be able to grow in.
I think that's a really healthy attitude. And
Yeah.
I do think that is the way forward to expand the knowledge of natural law into wider communities.
Yeah.
And I think even within our own, community of people who interact around natural law principles and so forth, it's very easy for us to unleash our frustrations in ways that divide us within.
Yeah.
And I think that we need to learn how to, again, regulate ourselves emotionally, have enough self-awareness to recognize how, what is the thread of our own mind control programming and emotional trauma-based programming that is activating us in this behavior,
Right.
whether it's isolation and avoidance, or confrontation and uh, attack, however we're going into fight, flight, or freeze,
Mhm.
again, coming back to the nervous system,
Yeah.
and how we recognize when we're there, how we learn to regulate, to manage or regulate ourselves when we are off, triggered, I guess.
Yeah.
A
Yeah.
simple way to put
That
it.
is
Yeah.
challenging. That
Yeah.
is challenging to have that kind of control and that kind of power, within yourself to do that. Because yeah, it's certain things that trigger me, especially if it's based on a severe trauma that I've had in the past. Boy, it's like, just like that, you're just like, wait a minute. You know what I'm saying? And you're just, you're defensive and you're upset and just you react, just,
Yeah.
automatic. You're on
Yeah.
automatic pilot mode. So that is
Mhm.
something that can be really challenging. But I've just working on taking that accountability, no matter how I reacted in the situation. But when I step back from it and have time to process, even if maybe the other person did do something really effed up to me, I still have to look back at me.
Yes.
How did
Yes.
I react? How did I even allow the situation to unfold, or just whatever? Just really looking more at me than anyone else in the situation, so that I can move forward with me
Yes.
being
And
in
that's
control
the
of
only
my
place, right. And
life.
it's the only place we have actual,
Control.
power, control,
Right.
right? And we
Again.
all see control, and we're all trying to control someone else. Gotta come back to self.
So yeah.
And, and I think, when you look at all the crazy going on in the world, and then you can start to see that as a macrocosm of the micro, that you can look at the communities and how the communities are interacting, and you can just see the echoes of these
Yeah.
same patterns all the way down into our own selves.
Yep.
We are the cause
Yep.
of what's happening and the broader communal level or the collective level.
Right.
And so we need to learn, how do we manage ourself and our own inner contradictions and activations, so that we can be solid and balanced when we step into the world to do good. And this is where I like this idea of the cosmic mother, and like you have the earth, as her womb, she's pregnant with life,
Mhm.
and
Yes.
and it's on Mother Earth that the solution is required. We have to be here.
Yes, and I think
Mhm.
that is the perfect segue into the next question, which
Mhm.
is, what is internal monarchy?
Yes. Yeah. So internal monarchy is essentially being self-aware and self-directed enough to be able to stay conscious amid all the turbulence of life, so that when we are making our choices day to day, that we are making them from a place of consciousness rather than subconscious programming. And when we're operating from from a subconscious programming,
Mhm.
we are not in real control of our lives, even though we might think we are. And the subconscious just that. It's below our level of consciousness. We don't know what we don't know. It's in the wheel of change. We might call it pre-contemplation. It's what we're used to. It's
Mhm.
what we were raised with. It's what we were told was true.
Yeah.
And we raised all of us from infancy and with certain belief sets that we take for granted as true. And the process of awakening is the process of beginning to question those things, question everything,
Yeah.
and find a a truth seeking process to then you know kind of remove the clutter and the static in order to get to the true frequency, you know.
Yeah.
And it's a process. So to develop this internal directorship, to be self-directed and have internal monarchy, we need to understand our relationship to the external control system. We need to
Absolutely.
understand how we've been programmed through external forces,
Hmm.
through religion, through government, through our parents, through our school systems. And so, as you might imagine, it brings up conflict. It brings up it, the the areas that we are in dissonance, where we are not in full alignment within ourselves or
Yes.
between ourselves and our world.
Yes. Yes. And I think it's too, such a big part of that programming is also like scarcity programming and victimhood programming, which both lead people to be very angry. Because if I feel like I'm a victim and you're a victimizer, I'm gonna want to attack you. I'm
Yeah.
not gonna want to look inside of me and see what's going on. No, I can externalize all of those feelings. I can externalize everything because I am a victim.
Yes. Yes. And that's a trend right now.
Yes.
And
Yes.
and it's a divisive trend, and it's not bringing us toward freedom. It's really a big distraction,
Mm-hmm. Yes.
honestly, and even very well-meaning people, who are really fighting for rights in a sense, but doing so really from a place of feeling as from a victim stance instead of
Empowered.
the true powered self that we are.
Yes.
And
Yes.
it's kind of like begging something that we perceive as more powerful
Right.
than us to give
Right.
us our rights and freedom back.
Right.
And that's a mistake. That's another polarity that we're just perpetuating.
Yes.
And so ultimately, yeah, recognizing our own internal power based on our natural rights,
Mm-hmm.
and learning the skill sets. Like there's really practical skill sets to develop internal monarchy. Things like communication skills, the ability to have mindfulness and to be able to witness what's going on inside of ourselves, to self-assess,
Mm-hmm.
to be able to see patterns.
Patterns. That's a big one.
Mhm.
Patterns are
Yes.
a big one.
Yes. To be able to use critical thinking methods.
Yeah.
The trivium, which is, input, processing, output, or grammar, logic, rhetoric, right? It's very logical based. It's based on gathering data, really activating our frontal lobes. And it could also lean us to a very intellectual place, an idealistic place that can separate us from our subjective world, which also needs attention and needs consideration.
Yeah.
So we can escape our emotions by going so far into the objective
Yeah.
that we lose sight of the care that is required to bridge the gap, that divides people. And there is a way, I think, that we're like a technology. We're a powerful technology of which we've only discovered a very small percentage of our true capacity to operate in this field of on Earth. We can learn so much more about vibration and frequency and energy and so forth, and um, then we're in all these senses beyond the basic five. But we need to get grounded in our basic five senses to start.
Yeah.
And
I
and
agree. For sure. For
yeah,
sure.
and as we develop that self knowledge and become step into the subjective experience, you know we 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 can start to learn how to discern truth even in a subjective fashion. But it's the distortions and the trauma and the stressors and the pressures that we are inundated daily, that our ancestors have been put through, that we experience epigenetically in all these different ways, right? That
Yeah.
we're so clouded from that ability
Yeah.
that we can't trust the subjective
Yeah.
without doing a very solid objective analysis and learning. When we can learn to witness our subjective from this place of, this mindset of self energy, or the mother,
And
balanced mother
centeredness.
energy, yes,
Centeredness. Yeah.
then we can start to see all the interactions of the objective and subjective in our life, and we can start to heal.
Yeah.
We have the capacity to heal ourselves. Our mind, body, spirit system is self-healing
Yeah.
if we learn how to get out of our own way
Yeah.
and learn the technology. And so
Hmm.
so that's really a part of what I'm passionate about.
Yeah, that was beautifully stated, and I had put a comment up here from Sarah where she was saying that victimhood mentality is a fashion trend now. Who's the biggest victim? It's like almost like a competition, and I'm saying this about victimhood not to say that people are not being victimized. That's not what I'm saying. Yes, people are doing horrible things, but like you were saying, Leslie, we have to approach these issues from a place of empowerment, not
Yeah,
of victimhood, not of shrieking away, not of they have control over me, there's nothing I can do, woe is me. We have to come from a place of empowerment.
yeah.
Uh,
And,
it-
empowerment doesn't mean that we're going to go and like berate someone else.
right.
It's about going within to really establish our true knowing of ourselves as powerful beings,
Things.
and then make very deliberate, conscious choices about
Yes.
how we interact and operate in the world. And having a direction, which is that masculine element of, what are we here to do? What is our purpose? What's most important?
Right.
And to determine what's most important, we have to get out of our own self somewhat,
Yeah.
into understanding our interconnection with each other, and the consequences of our behaviors.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's something that I try to remind myself with my morning affirmations every day is, make sure you are aligned in living in integrity. Are your actions, beliefs, and emotions all, and thoughts in alignment with each other? Or are you saying this and then thinking this? Or are you thinking this and then doing that? So, you know what I mean? So, and no one's going to be in perfect integrity, 24 hours a day. Of course not. But the more I feel like we focus on that and remind ourselves and try to really stay present and in
Yeah.
that conscious state of mind,
Hmm.
and think about, really think about the things that we do and the things that we say and the consequence of them. I think that makes a big difference in the our inner world, and how we are going to our inner world is going to determine exactly how we relate to the outer world,
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
within so without, you know what I mean? So I
Yeah.
think that's very, very important.
Yeah. I like the word, awareness, attunement, being, attuned to what's happening within us, be having that as much conscious awareness that we can. And that includes, things like noticing our breath, noticing the tension in our body, noticing our tendencies, around eye contact and body language, right? um, the tone of voice, the language we use, what we avoid, what are we avoiding, what are we doing, what are we doing to feel better? Do we have some addictive tendencies? Are we, how are we running or fleeing? How are we fighting? Where are we frozen? And and then when we start to see this, we can learn to process the wounds, the traumas, this consequences of chronic stress. We can process those things through a compassionate, caring lens, using our own empathy with ourself, our own compassion with ourself, to kind of free us from the extreme parts
Yeah.
that we develop to protect ourselves from further pain.
Yeah, and they can. I mean, you can develop some very concrete and defense mechanisms to when you feel like, especially when you grow up in an environment where you can have to literally protect yourself.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it that awareness, and noticing those patterns, and like you said, catching it early. Like now, I'm so much better when I see those first signs. Like, oh, I'm not. I'm my this thought is circling. I'm feeling really tense. Like, how am I going to deal with this the way I used to, which is really unhealthy, or am I going to just go outside and ground right now?
Yeah.
So it's like you have that awareness, and you
Yeah.
sometimes I still will make the bad choice, but way more now I'll make the healthier choice.
Yes.
And
That
just try to break those patterns, but it's not like an instant thing. It's not like, oh, I recognize that pattern now, I'm done with that. It takes time, it takes effort, it takes consistency, and a
rep
lot of energy
it really does, and
break those patterns.
repetition.
Yeah.
Repetition, perseverance, commitment.
Yeah.
It's very important that we commit to our own psychological healing and our physical healing, that they're very interconnected, right? And we need to care for ourselves. We
Yeah.
need to put the love also towards self,
Yeah.
and that will then bolster us in our capacity to then do great work in the world,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah, it starts with that, yeah, that true care for yourself, because when you don't have it, it's going to get mirrored back to you in the relationships that you seek, that seek you, because
Yeah,
they're trying to show you,
yeah,
see, you still really don't care about yourself, or I wouldn't be here. You know what I
yeah,
mean? I wouldn't be this close to you if you did. So yeah, I agree with you 100% on
yeah.
that.
It's like everyone and everything is a teacher,
Yep.
potentially.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
And yeah, and seeing how we respond or react
Mhm.
to whatever it is that comes into our life, and you know, then recognizing, I know one of the biggest challenges right now for me, and I think a lot of people, is the inundation of stressors. Like it's just hitting thing after thing after thing,
Mhm.
and I at all levels
Yeah.
of our lives, and it's a problem, and so
Yes.
we I think all need to do some check-in. Where are we now in this present time? How are we doing now? How balanced are we? How much are we leaning out of balance into escapism, addiction, um, whatever it might be, and how are we oppressors of ourselves, of others,
Yeah.
and I think, to understand ourselves in the present, it helps to understand the past, to understand history, to see the patterns of history, to
Yeah.
understand our own ancestry, where we come from in context of the historical events, and to then just ask the questions. Okay, what were the effects on me of what happened to my great grandmother? You
Yeah.
know, and how is that shaped how my mother raised me, and some of the unconscious patterns of my personality?
Yeah.
How is that affected how I parent my children?
Yeah.
What are my weaknesses, so to speak, in my life? How healthy have my relationships been? How good am I at managing my impulses, or whatever, these areas that we get knocked off, our
Yeah.
temper, anger, right? Depression, anxiety,
Yeah.
right? All of these things we come in loaded with programming off the bat.
Fully loaded from,
Yeah.
like you said, not just from even just our lifetime, from previous lifetimes, from generations, from, you know, uh, it's powerful, how fully loaded we come in, and it's
Yeah.
amazing how much progress we're even able,
Yeah.
to make.
Yeah. And then
Through
also on
that
the
and to
flip
heal.
Yeah, and the flip side is seeing also the resiliency and the strengths and the survival abilities, and seeing some of the negative, maybe immoral behaviors in the context of the desire to survive, and how do we make peace in some way with that, and how do we then, with our added knowledge, rectify and create correction, for the
Right.
future generations. So
Yeah.
we want to keep in mind that the future and the whole, as it's past, present, future. It's mind, body, spirit. It's many different levels and layers of reality that we impact. You know.
Yeah, and I've been watching a lot of videos from different spiritual teachers and things like that, that talk a lot about when you finally get to a point where you're breaking these generational curses and doing that healing those wounds that have just been so long, and so hardened within us. And when
Mhm.
you finally heal those, it breaks it, breaks it past, present, and future. It heals
Mhm.
it throughout the continuum.
It makes sense to me,
It makes
intuitively.
sense to
I
me
mean,
too.
obviously,
I just wanted to get your thoughts
yeah,
on that.
yeah, I do, and I know some of this spiritual, it becomes less concrete, obviously. And, how do we become a clear enough vessel to be attuned to what the signs and signals that spirit gives us,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, that's a big part of it too.
how do we become kind of clean, clear vessels? So that brings in, how we eat and how we think and how we regularly cleanse our bodies and meditate and mindfully contemplate. Slowing down. I think if there's anything people could do is really slow down the pace of your life enough to be present and witness what's going on.
Yeah, and like you were saying, because I agree. I sometimes I just crave just to slow down so bad. But like you
Mhm.
said, there's so much being thrown at us right now. Like not even just every day, like multiple times just in one day. It's just like it's just nonstop bombardment with different stressors and different challenges, and they're just getting more extreme, the stressors and challenges. So it's like I don't. I just feel like when do I even get to slow down? Like, when, you know what I mean? It's
Mhm.
very
Yeah.
overwhelming at times, whereas it's like
Yeah.
I don't even know how to handle this much stuff at
Yeah.
once.
Yeah. And I think there's multiple ways to approach it. One way that, when as a I'm a mother of three and single mom for many of the years. Right now my kids are like 27, 25, and 18. And it's like, I'm like, oh, finally, I get some space in my
Right,
my world. And
right.
but when I took on a lot. Like, those were my choices. I took on a lot of things that complicated my life through unconscious drivers, and I'm still reaping those consequences. I'm having to untangle the effects,
Yeah, yeah,
now. But and that's true for all of us. But I think that, so I like to think of micro moments. So, in meditation, you can think about the gap. When you do meditation, it sort of slows down reality, slows things down, and you can start to see the spaciousness in between the thoughts,
yeah,
the gap, in between our words, in between our actions. And through those mindfulness practices that we can practice when we're doing things. We don't
true.
have to
Yeah,
be in
yeah,
a
you're right.
30-minute, meditation to be mindful. We can develop mindfulness practices while we're walking to the bathroom, while
Yeah,
we are cooking our food or eating our food, while we're talking with each other. We can have awareness of what's happening with us as we're observing something that we're interacting with. So developing those skills and and finding practices that reinforce that, such as like gratitude practices.
yeah. Those are oof, every
And yeah, and it also
yeah,
helps to bring balance because, our minds are pretty attuned when we're under stress to the threats and the problems.
yeah. You'll start
So
to hyper
yeah.
focus on all the problems and the
Mhm.
negative, and
Yeah.
start all this internal complaining, which is actually making the magnifying the
Yeah.
problems rather than
Yeah.
helping you, solve them. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And when we recognize that we are overwhelmed, then we may have to make hard choices. We may need to step away from some of the agreements and obligations we've put ourselves in as we recognize that we've over obligated. The people who care tend to care a lot and tend to overdo their commitments. I think you and I can
true.
both relate to that. And and so, I've been taking a bit of a hiatus from some of the great work. I haven't been putting much out there because I've had a ton of stuff to deal with in my personal life that gave me a clear message that I need to be more present with and make more of a focus priority, but also recognizing some of my own limitations of where I'm maybe starting to crack on the edges,
Yeah,
and like back down so that I can replenish and gain clarity. Part of it too is sort of like going into the womb space, going into the cave
Yeah.
Sorry about the audio noise, I think, when I touch this. And and making sure that we give ourselves moments or minutes or hours and respite times, and we that may mean that we need to ask for help. We might need to do something we're not comfortable doing, saying no to some things. And our workaholism, whatever's driving us to do, well, that's a part of us that is likely a bit out of balance. Whereas what's the story behind that? Why are we so driven? What created that? Are
Yeah.
there fears around that?
Yeah.
What are we afraid of if we were to, slow down? We want to look at all those things,
Yeah.
and
That's
ask
very
the
true.
questions.
Yeah, yeah, that's very true. I think that reflection on the why, the why, is important to be honest with yourself about the
Yeah.
answer, because sometimes the answer can be a bit uncomfortable.
Very likely uncomfortable. Kind of guaranteed to be
But yeah,
uncomfortable,
but
right? And
but
that's where the mother comes in again, and
yeah,
she kind of wraps her arms around you, and she
yeah,
says, I'm here with you, so that while you look at your darkest parts, and I'm still holding you, and there's still love and care.
yes,
And with that, as you start to be almost like a private detective of yourself, trying to understand the sleuth, of how things became what they are, right? And what are the wounds and the traumas and the experiences, and getting in touch with the pain of that usually younger part, a child part,
yeah,
that was pretty helpless at the time, and how that created defenses and patterns that then strengthened over time in our lives as a way of managing, our functioning and our ability to do what's required in our life. So we have to kind of, it does take a little bit of that. I disagree with people who say you don't ever have to look back or feel the pain of the past. I'm not saying that we need to go dig up every tiny thing.
yeah,
The way you figure out what you need to look at is what's calling you in the present. It's in the present where all the the clues are,
yeah. And
and we just follow the trail.
yeah, and I agree with you, because I don't necessarily think of it as necessarily the past, because that little wounded girl is here right now with me.
Yes.
She's doing, like, making decisions for me that I don't want her to make right now. So I have to comfort her, like you said, and be there for her and reassure her that we're okay now.
Yeah.
But
And that,
she's still here. So it's not,
yeah,
this is a present issue
yes.
to still deal with.
That's a incredibly true insight. And it is all happening in the present time as a result of a past wounding, because
Exactly.
that little child self is very much alive and present.
Yes.
And she or he, right, um, needs mothering, fathering, and often she's looking outside. But what does she really need? The mothering and fathering of our own of ourself, of our true self, our higher self,
Yeah.
that which we can connect to,
Hmm.
that is much bigger than us, that cosmic mother and
Yeah.
father. And that is where we build self-trust, through being our own soother,
Yeah.
being our own inner comforter, being an inner teacher, helping us to learn about what's right and wrong,
Yeah.
learning how to correct and, course correct our path, so that we don't keep repeating the painful cycles.
Yeah.
Right? That's part of this internal monarchy.
It is. Here's another comment from Sarah. She said, confrontation is uncomfortable for everyone. We can either run from it or face it despite the fear.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and the truth is, when we can really, desensitize uh, an active trauma line, a memory line, and we are able to kind of do this transmutation, this alchemy within us, emotionally and spiritually, then those things no longer have the power over us. it becomes pretty neutralized. We
Yeah.
become more equanimous. You know, we start to see the good and the bad
Yeah.
in whatever.
And
And
the benefits of the good and the bad,
yeah,
the
yeah,
growth that comes from the good and the bad.
mm-hmm,
So yeah, no,
yeah,
I agree. That's a very powerful statement, which will lead us into,
yeah,
and we've kind of discussed some of this, but how do we
yeah,
activate, our sacred gifts? How do we
mhm,
activate so that we can truly, be embraced by the cosmic mother,
yeah,
and feel that support ongoing?
yeah. Yeah, so we have started some of this, some of the answers to this, and
Yes.
it really does bring us. Like I love that image there that you have of that kind of meditative state where the light is in the heart space,
Yeah.
right, which is in the center,
Yeah.
and it's where we can. I love the wings too. It's
I know.
like you know,
I fell in love with this image. I was like, this is the
yeah.
one.
Yeah, and it's this like on the right and the left, the two pillars,
Yeah.
the masculine, the feminine, the love and care, and the self defense, the boundaries, the discipline, you know, the subjective with the objective, and so how do we activate? You know, it is coming back to do our self work. You know, people are calling it shadow work in a lot of circles, and there's you know different approaches to that. I, as a clinical psychotherapist, my tools are psychodynamic and cognitive behavioral, and um, involving this process of like internal family systems, which is a really good model to study, and I know that Richard Schwartz, when you read his book No Bad Parts, he's really clearly wants people to learn how to awaken this ability to enter self energy, um, with or without a therapist. Generally, I know when I started to learn it, it was really hard to develop the skill of witnessing my parts without a guide.
Mm.
So and once you get the guidance and you have some practice in this process of going within and mindfully noticing what's coming up and starting to untangle uh, and separate the parts. And then it becomes more simple, to sort of isolate and explore the dominant parts that are kind of hijacking us.
Mm.
Right.
I
So
like
that,
that word. Yeah, hijacking. That's
yeah,
what it feels like sometimes. Certain things is like this is hijacking my whole life or my whole being or my whole energy system right now. Or.
yeah. Yeah, whether it's anger or a fear or an entitlement or um, a perfectionism, uh, there's so many ways we get off balance, right?
Right.
And oftentimes when we're overwhelmed, our mind is scrambling with 20, 30, 100 different things, right? And
Yeah.
so we can learn to slow it down. And I think that process of slowing things down involves literal stillness and attunement and learning to listen and align with what our body is telling us. Very much there's a somatic element here that is very important to begin with, because it's in our body that we either feel safe or unsafe. And our nervous system is created us in such a way that our amygdala, which is like the smoke detector, fire alarm of part of our brain that's in the limbic system, which is the animal brain. It is the emotional brain. It's where trauma memory is stored. When that amygdala is faster than our frontal lobes, and in fact can prevent us from activating our frontal lobes. So let's say we're little and we are bit by a dog, okay? We're bit by a dog. and the dog was black and white, and it had a furry tail, right? We're going through our day, we're perfectly fine. Out of the corner of our eye, we see a black and white object with something that looks furry like a tail.
Mm-hmm.
Our nervous system is going to take over. Our fight or flight mechanism is going to say, sorry brain, sorry thinking rational brain, frontal lobes, you're turned off, I got to protect you. And the amygdala starts ringing the bell. It activates the brainstem, and the brainstem pumps adrenaline and moves our blood, and we're ready to run, and ready to like take the stick and fight that dog, and we're like all in a panic, perhaps even. And then when we realize that's not even a dog, that's like, somebody's fur coat or whatever. Like, it's just something that looked like a dog from the corner of my eye.
Mm-hmm.
But then on our body told us, no, we were in danger.
Right.
And we believed it more than likely, at least for a few seconds, until we were able to activate our thinking brain and analyze the truth, the reality of our environment, and check it out. Okay, so this is happening multiple times a day in subtle ways,
Mm-hmm.
if not major ways, where we're having physiological reactions and that we're not conscious of even, and we're wondering like, why am I feeling anxious right now? Like, why do I just feel like rolling up in a ball? Why am I exhausted? And
Yeah.
there's some work going on that we're not conscious of. And so some of the basic skills to practice daily, okay, because the skills, if we want the skills to work when we're activated, we need to build those pathways when we're in those habits, when we're feeling okay, when life is good. So that's why mindfulness and meditation should happen, most every day. Why we should be checking in on our breathing, and being aware of when we're holding our breath, and maybe allowing ourselves to settle into a deeper, calmer breathing state, to be able to attune to the tension, in our body, and
Yeah.
being curious about, what's that about? What is that? What's activating that? How do I tend to the body so that I feel safe in the body?
Mm.
It's creating safety within yourselves first.
Yeah, you're right on the money with that. That's feeling safe in the body. It can be very challenging, especially when you are not used to it, because it took me a long time to even realize that I didn't feel safe in my body, that my nervous system was a wreck. I was like that for so long. I thought that was just the baseline until
Exactly.
it calmed down. I was like, wait, at first I was like, what's wrong with me? I feel so calm. Like, just so it's yeah, so it's a thing. And this has been an amazing conversation, Leslie. I definitely would like to talk more with you about this during the interview for the Natural Freedom Summit and talk
Yes.
a bit more about this, because I think this is such an important topic, especially like you said, we're in a pressure cooker right now. They're tightening the screws, and we need these type of skills. We need to understand our bodies, our nervous system, how to regulate things, and how to get through this together.
Yes.
So,
Yes. You get it.
yes, to get through this together. So I appreciate this so much. Again, Leslie, tell everybody where they can find you and so how they can support your work.
Yes. AliveThrive.life, the One Great Work Network.com. And I have a YouTube channel, Leslie Powers, and I'm on Odyssey and Rumble as well. So,
So I highly encourage everyone in the audience to follow Leslie, support her work. She has amazing content out there. And please give a like to this video and follow social media for Affirm Life Daily as well. And visit the website at affirmlifedaily.com. Your support is needed in this mission, in this movement towards truth and freedom. So thank you again, Leslie. Thank
yeah,
you
thank
all for
you.
joining us this evening. And infinite grace, love, and gratitude.
Yeah, thank you, Cynthia, so much for this opportunity, getting me out of my shell again.
Yes, yes. This was amazing, and I appreciate you so much.